Hello and welcome. Now in today's video we are going to look at what alpha reading is, which is probably one of the most underrated forms of early reader feedback. So just before we get into things, I just want to put a quick disclaimer that all materials shown here, including excerpts of text, are copyright protected. But let's get into things. So today we're going to cover what alpha reading is and who alpha readers are. We're going to look at when they read a manuscript, what they provide feedback on, and how they are different to other early readers. We're also going to be looking at some details on running an alpha team, and we're also going to have a chance to practice some alpha reading. So a little bit about me. Hi, my name is Annalise Healy and I am the author of 4 published books and am an avid early reader of manuscripts. I really love supporting writers and indie authors and helping people become effective early readers, as that is truly one of the biggest gifts that you can give to an author, is being an early reader on their books, and there is such a need for them in today's society as the amount of people that are self-publishing is steadily increasing. So disclaimer, nothing said here is meant as legal advice or the only way to do things. It is solely based on my personal experience. But let's take a look at the important things now. So what is alpha reading and who are alpha readers? So alpha readers are a type of early reader along with editors, beta readers and ARC readers, amongst many others. They are the very first people to get their hands on your book. They will often read draft 1 or 2, or even as you draft it is very common. Their role is to give you honest feedback on the very wide ideas of your book. So you can run ideas past them and they will help you to come up with solutions for problem areas. So being this early into the drafting process, even as you're drafting it, it makes them have a really significant role in determining where the book goes, as a lot of the times they will have such a big impact on adding chapters, even changing the whole way that the plot works and the sequence of events and things like that. So they really have big roles. And now we are going to look at what some of those roles are in the feedback that they give. So alpha readers, as I said, comment on wider aspects of the text and overarching ideas. So aspects they might comment on include the plot, pacing, general feel, character development, originality and structure, perspective and tense, amongst so much more. So as you can see, these are really very big ideas of the text, and they really are looking at the story as a whole. It can be very hard to elaborate just in a little part, as everything you say needs to relate to what it achieves in the story as a whole. So let's take a look at these things in more detail. So these are some guiding questions that alpha readers might use when they're looking at the text to make sure that they're really answering those big things. So in regards to looking at plot, were scenes missing or could be cut? Did the world building make sense? Are there plot holes? Does the timeline make sense? Are the settings relevant? What scenes were their favourite, least favourite, and why? How was the pacing? Was there enough tension? Is the first chapter hooking? And in regards to characters, did they empathise with the characters? And did the characters have individual voices? Do the characters move through character arcs? Do relationships feel natural and not forced? And who don't you see enough of? Who could be cut? Are there too many characters? Too little? And did their motivations make sense? And in regards to the whole general story, did they get into the story and were they engaged by it? And did they take a main message away from the story? How did the dialogue flow? And does the tense and perspective support the text? Or would it be different, like better in something different? Now this one can be really subjective, but it is interesting to just see those different perspectives. And what was their overall favourite thing about the book, least favourite, and why? Now, if you've watched my earlier presentation on beta reading, I hope you can kind of see already how they differ to beta readers in being much bigger ideas, and their ideas are often things that really need to be elaborated on, whereas as a reader, most of these things should be pretty well developed, and it will only be a little comment about in this particular chapter. There could be a bit more of this, rather than in the whole entire book. There needs to be more of this. So now we're just going to look at a bit more into those differences with different early readers. So in the differences between them and beta readers, there's really one major way, and that is that they don't provide feedback on how the story reads to readers. Instead, it is focused on how the book reads as a book, or whatever format the draft is in. So in this sense, the feedback of alpha readers is a lot more focused on technical aspects of the text and very much those whole book ideas. Alpha readers are always looking at the whole idea, whereas beta readers really can get really specific into chapters, paragraphs, sentences, all those smaller parts that just a little bit of tweaking. And how do they differ to developmental editors? Now, just a disclaimer on this, there are very differing opinions on this. So this is just kind of the gist that I could get from a little bit of research and what I personally know. So editors are usually formally educated. So they have deeper knowledge of the fundamentals of book structure. So alpha readers and beta readers at that will still, at the end of the day, provide feedback that is guided by their own preferences, no matter how hard they try to be objective. Developmental editors are just really good at being able to look at the book from that fundamental objective perspective because they have been trained specifically in how to achieve that, and they can very often defend their answers more and the feedback more by using that training that they have and that experience and knowledge that they have. So I hope that makes sense. So anyone you ask to will probably have different opinions on the differences between these, but that is just what I find and what the people that I have researched have found the differences to be. But obviously there are always going to be overlaps. You're still working on the same book after all, and the same areas of improvement will still be the same areas of improvement, if that makes sense. So now we are going to quickly look at answering some of the questions that you guys have submitted. Now, if you aren't following me on my Instagram, this is where I get these questions. So make sure you are following there so you can have your feedback in, like your input into different courses that I run, and make sure to get your questions answered. There is a link in my profile to my Instagram, or it is just at Anna Healy Writes, as it is on here. So, first question, should you leave only critical comments or also fun ones of your reactions? So whilst there is a major focus on critical feedback, it is always good to have reactions. They really help the author to know how the book is being interpreted. So, and it is important to remember that they aren't mutually exclusive. Have a fun reaction, then say why it made you excited or whatever it did to turn it into critical feedback. That is a very underrated way of structuring your feedback, and it can sometimes be the most helpful as you get why something did something, and you can think about how you can apply that to the whole book. Okay, next question. What experience should you have before you become an alpha reader? Again, there are many different opinions on this, but if you are just alpha reading for a friend or a family, you don't need anything. If you're offering it on social media, it is good but not necessary to have some experience working with early manuscripts, either as an alpha reader or a beta reader or anything like that. And you should also first complete some researching on text structure and composition and things like that. And that is especially important if you aren't a writer yourself or someone who has that type of experience in writing a book and structuring a book. And have a bit of experience in critiquing the work of people close to you first. Okay, some more questions. What is better, alpha reading or beta reading as the reader? So there is no one answer to this, as it will depend on your own personal interest. From my own experiences and from people I've talked to about it, alpha reading is generally harder, as you do have to have more of an understanding of technical structure and be able to more critically view things. And this can make it really hard to just enjoy the story. In that sense, I wouldn't recommend alpha reading books that you are really, really looking forward to, as it can take away a little bit of that enjoyment because you have to be so critical about the book. And why should you use alphas? Using alphas will make sure that your structure is sound and that there is a good foundation upon which to build the rest of the story. I often see in books where alpha readers haven't been used, beta readers dropping out more as the text is less developed than what they are used to working with, and they can't engage with it in the way that you want betas to, which is from the perspective of readers. So I hope that clears up a few more questions that you guys have. If you had any more, you can leave them in the comments or message me on my Instagram, and I am so happy to answer any of those for you. So who should you choose as your alpha readers? Most people use their family members as alpha readers, but this is really only plausible if they are readers or have other relevant interests. I would not recommend solely relying on this, as their experience with reading early manuscripts is probably limited. So in addition to this, you can talk to your writing friends to see if they would be interested. I think this is one of the best ways to do it, and something that I very commonly do with my writing friends. So if you don't have any, don't be afraid to run an alpha reading team as you would a beta team by advertising on social media and selecting readers through a Google form or similar. There is also always the option of people you can hire from freelance sites, or sometimes editors will offer this service. But again, sometimes this isn't accessible to people that cannot afford such. So, how long do you give alphas? There is really no set time guidelines for this. Alphas usually stay with you for a while, going back over parts you fixed up and sewing up those plot holes. If you are running an alpha team, give about 3 to 4 weeks or more for the first pass through, and then talk to the readers about whether they will go back and visit bigger areas you are rewriting or scenes that you are adding. And so how do they give feedback? Like with beta readers, having in-text comments are crucial. So this is in the shared online document, and also considering things like a post-reading questionnaire. Likely in the in-text comments, you will create long threads of going back and forth, sharing ideas, and really working out some of those harder areas. And then you want to really stay active in things that they are asking instead of waiting to the end to review feedback like you might choose to do with beta readers. It really is important that you are actively seeing as they come up areas of interest that they are pointing out, so you can talk through a few problem areas with them. So now we are going to have a go at doing some sample alpha reading. So we're going to look at 2 excerpts of a manuscript and talk about some things that you might comment on. But I just want to put a disclaimer that as alpha reading mostly looks at bigger ideas of the text, and this will just focus on very specific aspects, as I obviously cannot share a whole entire text with you. It will not give you a whole idea of what alpha reading looks like, and will really only be like a very focused central study. So in particular, we will look at character and plot development, as these are one of the most important things I will look at, and these should also be fairly well developed by the time it gets to beta readers, so the beta readers can just comment on those things within like paragraphs and chapters that need fixing instead of things that affect the whole entire text as it is. So you can pause here now and read through that excerpt, and we'll come back together and we'll look at a few things that you might comment on. Okay, so some things that you'll comment on is, considering this is obviously the first introduction to the character of Morlun, you might ask yourself questions like, do we get an immediate sense of what she is like, and do we learn enough about her in this, or is there even too much information? Do you think it would be beneficial to see more of what she looks like? The redacted information in there is just a description of her outfit, which was not necessary. And does the dialogue seem to fit the characters? And do we get a sense of the relationship between the characters from the tone? So particularly in here, the type of relationship that Morlun and her brother has. Her brother is foreign. And based on this introduction, would you expect Morlun to become a critical character, or do you think she'll just kind of stay in the background? Thinking about the expectations that a reader might form is such an important role of being an alpha reader, and just having that knowledge in your head will help you with those other questions about whether there needs to be more about her or whether there could be less. Right, here we are going to look at another excerpt, which is just on the side there. So you can pause this here, and then we'll come back and look at those plot comments. Okay, so here in this excerpt, the main drama is revealed, which is obviously going to be the Golden Games. So is there enough worry shown on Kari's part? I'd say not. We are only told that it takes her breath away. This could be elaborated given how important this knowledge is. Like, she's learning that her whole entire world is about to be like thrown upside down. Like, there's new kings being elected. She's learning that pretty much her friend, which is foreign, has betrayed her. Like, shouldn't she have more of a reaction? And then also, how is the pacing? In this excerpt, many of the sentences are quite long, and they lose their main ideas because of how much information is in them. That final sentence especially is problematic, and it could be cut down to be more powerful in like feeling like a punch rather than a slow slap like that you hit with the information, if that makes sense. That's probably a bit of a weird comparison, but hopefully it gives you the idea of what I mean by that. So overall in this excerpt, the tension could really be heightened by cutting out unnecessary elaboration and really showing more viscerally Kyra's reaction. So even though that is only a small excerpt, that kind of gives you an idea of what you are looking at as an alpha reader, because they are bigger ideas than what you will look at as a beta reader or some other types of early readers. So that is the end of the presentation today. Thank you for coming along. I hope this really helped clear up what alpha reading is, and especially showed the difference between it and beta reading. So thank you for coming along. If you have any more questions, you know how to contact me. And just before we go, keep an eye out, as hopefully we will have many more classes like this in the future covering many other aspects of writing, publishing, and early reading. Thank you. Bye.